Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we push a child out of the way so we can ride Rambi on the DK carousel. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including rumors of a Metroid Prime remake, and then on Thursday, we are celebrating our 500th episode and our 5-year anniversary with Nintendo Pentologies. But Mark, in the meantime, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I recently got new headphones. And they're the kind that like you put the like plastic tips on and put them into your ear canal. You put them like deep
into your
in
ear.
There. And I am sad to say my left ear is oddly shaped. My right ear, I found the perfect size. It fits in there. It doesn't move at all. My left ear is just weird. There's no getting around it. There is no size that correctly fits my left ear.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that it's odd or bad in any way, Mark.
It
just means it is
ear. People, I'm ashamed of it. Doctors are frightened by it.
No, doctors are not. Look, doctors, as we all know, are only afraid of people that can make you lose weight without dieting. Doctors are afraid of those people, and that's it. That's the only thing doctors are afraid of. Well, Mark, I did, as I started doing that welcome to the show, I did see you recoil a little bit. Maybe I was shouting a little too loud directly into the interior of your ear.
Yeah, I mean, if I've got to be honest with you, Patrick, if my hearing is injured by hearing your dulcet tones do the intro for our show, it'll have been well worth it.
You'll see me in court?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
It'll be the end of this show because we'll be suing each other to the end of eternity.
Oh, that's so good. Look, the end of the show, whatever. Technically, this is our 500th episode, but we are celebrating that milestone on Thursday, which is also our 5-year anniversary, and that is like our true 5-year anniversary, more or less to the date of doing this show. Which, Mark, how does that make you feel? You've been doing this for 5 years.
I love it. You know, we talk about it every week, but I love doing this show. I love interacting with our listeners. I love being able to hang out with you every week. I mean, we can save the Love Fest for Thursday, but
That's right.
It makes me so happy that we've hit 5 years.
Me too. I'm very much looking forward to our conversation on Thursday. In the meantime, if people want to try to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces, they can certainly try. All they have to do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and give us a mailing address so we can send you my copy of Sonic Forces. You play it for as long as you want. You send it back. It doesn't cost you anything. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there, but that's not so bad. Then you get to play Untitled Goose Game or ignore it the same way you would have ignored my copy of Sonic Forces.
The other thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you to the Nintendo Pals podcast for reviewing us on Podchaser. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everybody who has left us a review, whether it's on the US Apple Podcast Store, whether it is on your podcatcher of choice. It makes a huge difference for helping people find the show. And it continues to grow this society that we call Nintendo Cartridge Society. So thank you very much. If you leave us a review on the US Apple Podcast Store, we will see it and we will give you a shout out on the show. If you review us anywhere else, like the Nintendo Pals reviewed us on Podchaser, let us know. We would love to give you a shout out. You can send us an email or just hit us up on Twitter. Or, I don't know, send a Skyrider over Patrick or my house and we'll make note of it.
I did see an airplane towing a banner the other day. Maybe that was someone trying to alert me to the fact that they left a review on, some obscure podcast platform.
Yeah, they just know that we live somewhere in LA, so they're just circling the skies.
Right. I mean, I have expressed multiple times that I live in the Atwater Village. I've referred to where we record as the Atwater Studio. It's not that big of an area of Los Angeles. It would be pretty easy to target me if you wanted to. We are in October now, which means it is Game and Watch month. We won't be talking about Game and Watch specifically or necessarily on Thursday, but the rest of our topic episodes through the rest of the month will all be Game and Watch related. I have loved seeing the various emails come through with people's experiences with Game and Watch, your suggestions about things for us to cover. It's all great. It's all good. If you have any more, or if you have any memories that you have not sent in about Game and Watch, email us Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. We've got some great things planned. We've got some things not quite planned yet, but it's gonna be a good couple weeks of programming all about Nintendo's first crack at portable hardware. I'm very much looking forward to it, Mark.
Me too. And you're right. And you're so right, Patrick, that even though we are not talking about Game & Watch specifically on Thursday, that does not make it any less Game & Watch month. It is Game & Watch month in our hearts. And listener, I hope it's Game & Watch month in your hearts. Let every day in October us think of something we are grateful for in Game & Watch.
Let not a day go past where you do not play a Game & Watch game.
Yes.
They're available in very few places, it turns out. If you have a 3DS, you have access to many Game & Watch games, either through the DSi versions of them that they released, or the Game & Watch Gallery 1, 2, or 3, which are all available there. If you have a Wii U, you can get the Game & Watch Gallery number 4, which was originally on Game Boy Advance. But other than that, you're kind of screwed. If you've got like a Switch, I don't know where you play Game & Watch games. But that's the month that it is. Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. Actually, speaking of Game & Watch, let's just start there.
Yeah, so I've been playing Game & Watch Gallery 1, which was released for the Game Boy and only features 4 of the Game & Watch games. But the thing that I'm enjoying about it is that it has the classic versions, and then it also has like modern, like updated versions, which they changed the graphics. Everything is in basically like features Mario characters or characters from the Mario universe, including Donkey Kong. And I'm having fun with it. I was skeptical, I'm not gonna lie to you, Patrick, when you were saying that you were like really digging them. I was not sure I was going to, but they are extremely well-made little mini games with that are a lot of fun to play. I'm especially enjoying the modern versions. I think they like improve the gameplay in a lot of ways.
Well, and this may be a topic that we tackle like for an episode of Game & Watch Month. That there are like the updates don't just change the characters and the graphics, but that they actually add like more dynamic changes. Like, is fire in the first Game & Watch gallery?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that there are different characters that can fall at different speeds. Like in Fire, that's really cool. In Manhole, you can get characters moving in either direction and characters that run at different speeds. So like there's so much more to take into consideration that the original Game & Watch couldn't do, and it makes the games like dynamically more interesting, or at least differently interesting, right?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to digging into the other Game & Watch galleries that are on that are available on the 3DS eShop.
I am playing a lot of the Game & Watch Gallery number 4 for the Game Boy Advance. I have a GBA cart, so I've been playing it on my original Game Boy Advance, which is great. I think it's like the absolute best way to be playing a Game Boy Advance games. I also love my Wii U, but like being able to take that thing wherever I am and play it there is great. I do have a bone to pick with Game & Watch Gallery 4. There are a lot of games on there. Like I think it starts with like 6 or 7 games immediately unlocked, and then there's another like that many games that you can unlock by earning stars with high scores in the other games. But then on top of that, there's a handful, maybe another like 5 or 6 maybe even as many as 9. It's a lot. Games that are only available in a classic mode, but you need to earn so many stars to get them. I'm talking over 100, right? Um, and that's where you can play some of like the rarest Game and Watch games, like Climber, like Mario's Bombs Away, like that Safecracker one. And I'm just like, the games are on the cart, right? Like they're there. I just haven't earned enough points to unlock them, and I find it so frustrating because like I just want to play the games. I know they're there. I know they're there. And like if you have a Game and Watch collection, I get that it makes sense to like the reward for earning high scores is you get access to more games. That is the best possible reward. But it's a reward so good, it feels like I shouldn't have to earn it. Do you know what I mean?
I also feel like, and this is silly, but it is how I feel, where it's like, but at this point, like that game came out so long ago, like at this point I should just be able to play it. Like I should just have access to it. There should be a cheat code. There should be something that just unlocks it.
Yeah, don't make me find a Game Boy Advance Game Genie, because I will.
Maybe there's somebody out there who's like listing versions of this game, like the Game Boy Advance cards on eBay,
fully
where
unlocked.
like they're all unlocked. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get 160 stars. So to earn 1 star, you have to get 200 points in a game.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. No, thank you.
So to earn 5 stars for a specific game, you need to get 1,000 points, right? In any game, and you can do the A mode, the B mode, and then modern A and B. So like, if you get really good at a type of game, you have the potential to earn 20 stars in that game, right? You have to get 160 stars to unlock Game & Watch Zelda. And I want to play Game & Watch Zelda, but I can't find 8 Game & Watch games that I'm that proficient in to score 1,000 points.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because okay, how does it work? Like once you earn the 160, is that like currency that you spend to unlock?
No.
Or like, so 160 is total. You need 160.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a ton. That's way more than I would ever do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and especially because like, you know, when every time I start a new Game & Watch game, I score like 6 points and then I fail and I'm like, uh-oh. But then like I start to like really dig into it and like get to the point where I can, get somewhere in like the 100 to 300 range when I'm like really in the zone. And then every now and then I get great at a Game & Watch game and can score in like the, high 800s. I broke 1,000 points in Donkey Kong 3 the other day. Which I felt really good about. And my high score in both Donkey Kong Jr. and the original Donkey Kong Game & Watch are also very high. And Mario Cement Factory. I'm very good at Mario Cement Factory. But yeah, even like all of those, like I can't get to 1,000. I just can't do it. And you'll be playing and like you'll break 800 and you're like, yes, that's 4 stars for that, and then die somewhere and then you're like, oh my, that took me 45 minutes of playing just this one round of this game. It's outrageous. They should all be unlocked.
Is Donkey Kong 3 for the Game & Watch? I cannot recall. Is that one the one? Does it actually have? Is that the one that features Stanley the Bugman, or is Donkey Kong 3 actually like Donkey Kong Jr.? I can't remember how that worked out.
No, Donkey Kong Jr. is like Donkey Kong Jr., sort of. And Donkey Kong 3 is the one that can be played as like a versus mode game.
Oh, yeah.
Where Stanley's on one side shooting like bug gas and Donkey Kong's on the other side, and you're trying to like move mosquitoes over to your opponent's side.
It's like tug of war, basically. For some reason, I find it to be beautiful that you excel at Donkey Kong 3, because I feel like that Donkey Kong 3 is something that we talk about a lot. I was going to say love, and I don't even think that's true, but it's something we talk about a lot.
It's something we love conceptually. I'm comfortable saying that. So I've also been spending a lot of time with the Castlevania Advance Collection, which I picked up after that Nintendo Direct. And these are all games the Game Boy Advance Castlevania games are all games that I'd never played before. I know them by reputation. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like dig in. I'm gonna start at the beginning. I started playing Circle of the Moon. I love it. It's so super good. Right now, I'm stuck on a boss called the Zombie Dragon. But it's two zombie dragons that you fight at once. And I feel like I'm maybe under leveled at this point. But the game is great, and I know that it is not the best of the bunch. What is like the
I
consensus on
I
these
think
games?
I think they're all good. Aria of Sorrow, the third one.
Mm.
I don't know if it's the consensus, but my opinion is that it's the best one, and I'm very excited for you to get to it if you're enjoying Circle of the Moon.
I'm really enjoying Circle of the Moon. It took me a little bit. There's a system in the game where you collect cards, and they are like one there are like two different rows of cards, and one row is like determines what the magical effect is, and the other row is like where that effect is located. So like you can match up, there's like a fire ability, and you match that with like fire and attack, and then your attacks are fire related. But there can be like fire and shield, and then you'll have like little fireballs like flying around you to protect you. And it's been super fun and cool to like mix and match those things, and until you use them, it doesn't tell you what it's going to do. They're just like little question marks. So it's been fun to discover those, even though like I could look up, I'm sure, a chart and know exactly what I should be using where. But it genuinely feels like there's a lot of room for experimentation in an otherwise like kind of straightforward Metroidvania platform action game.
Yeah, I picked up the Advanced Collection. I haven't started playing it yet, but oh man, and in theory, I'm so excited to get back into these games. Like it's been so long. I have not played them since I played them on the Game Boy Advance, and so I'm really excited that they're out on modern platforms.
It feels very cool to be playing so much Game Boy Advance stuff right now. Like, it's just like the era we're living in, where it's just like, oh yeah, Game Boy Advance is like cool again, and the game. Well, I don't know, cool again. Game and Watch Gallery. That's just us, I guess. And then I've also been playing Tetris 99. This weekend, Sarah picked it up and was plugging away at it for a while, and I was like, oh yeah, Tetris is a great game. And then I played a couple rounds on Sunday morning and was just having a great time. Tetris 99 continues to be a banger and a classic. Almost a perfect game. My game of the year every year. All right, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Today, Tuesday, October 5th, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania is released for Switch, and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is also released on Switch.
Presumably on the day that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is completed, right?
Yeah, presumably. I have never really played very much Super Monkey Ball. Never been able to get into the series. I've always like dabbled with it. I had the game. I had like I think a collection on the GameCube, but something about it just never really like clicked for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the first couple games are like really well regarded, but I've never actually touched one, so I'm not even really sure if I would click with it.
I just wonder if this is another like Sonic the Hedgehog situation, another Sega franchise where like I always thought, oh, maybe it's not for me, and then when I actually sat down and played, actually it was Sonic Mania, I was like, oh, this is amazing, like I'm super into this. And I wonder if the same sort of thing would happen with Super Monkey Ball. But I don't know that we are necessarily going to ever find out, because on Friday there is a game that is for sure going to be taking up my time. I am so excited that we are here. Listeners, October 8th, Metroid Dread is released into the world. A phrase I wasn't sure I would ever be able to say, but we made it, folks.
I'm so very excited about Metroid Dread. Also coming out with it, of course, are the Samus and Emmy amiibo, and the Switch OLED edition, or OLED version, or OLED model, whatever it's called. All releases on the same day. I sort of can't believe it. Like, I spend so much idle time thinking about, like, oh man, what if there was a new Metroid game? And there is!
Yeah, I don't really know what to do with myself. Like I think I'm not going to read reviews. I think I'm basically like on blackout for this game. I kind of
Yeah.
just want to go into it, have my own experience with it, and then kind of see what the discourse is.
Yeah, yeah, no, me too. And I'm sure we will be talking about it on this show. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. Like, I've been mostly blackout for like the pre-release cycle, to the point where I was even a little bit bummed to see it in the Nintendo Direct the other week because I was like, no, I don't need to see anymore. You told me Metroid Dread, I'm there. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to digging into this game. I have the collector's edition pre-ordered, which means that GameStop is going to be shipping it to me this week. I hope there is no complication with that
Oh
and that I
man, yeah.
get it on Friday. If I don't have it on Friday, I'm going to start to get like itchy about it, right? Like
That would be hard. That would be
it would
hard.
be it's good it'll be super hard, yeah.
But that's a slick collector's edition, so
Yeah, it
worth
looks so
it.
good.
I today it was a little bit rainy in LA, kind of like surprise rain, surprise lightning and thunder. We don't normally get that.
Yeah,
And
very cool.
I don't think that it's going to be this way on Friday, but I wish that like Metroid Dread had been released because it's perfect Metroid weather.
Oh yeah, Dark and Stormy Night? Are you joking? Of
Yeah.
course.
The other thing that I want to mention is being released on Friday, and we love a good Tetris on this game on this show, and Tetris Effect Connected is released on the Switch eShop. Patrick, this is the one, remind me, that you played in PSVR, is that right?
Yeah, well, yes, not the connected version, but Tetris Effect, yes. Tetris Effect Connected is the sort of like the like special edition version of
Yeah.
it, or like the complete. It's got more like sort of multiplayer options and stuff like that, which I guess is the thing that would make it like distinct from like the VR experience. Tetris Effect is beautiful. It is a like truly like stunning meditative like drill into the core of your brain, and like it's the end of the game is like a spiritual journey that you go on. When I've played this game in VR, it makes me cry. Like it is like a legit moving, wonderful experience of just like playing Tetris set to like music and beats that respond dynamically to how you are dropping the pieces. And the backgrounds like kind of change and evolve. And I don't know what it is about like the speeds of the game, but like it ratchets up and relaxes. At a pace that feels like very intentional to like hijack your brain, right? Like it's leading you on a guided meditation through Tetris, and it's beautiful. Like I really cannot sing the game's praises highly enough. Metroid Dread is incredible, but Tetris Effect is like a religious experience.
Well, I am thinking I'm going to pick it up, not necessarily knowing when I'll have a chance to really dig into it, but it's something that I've been interested in since you played it on PSVR. I do wonder, do you think that something is lost or will be lost not playing it in VR?
Yes, but it's not because I've also played it not in VR.
Oh, okay.
On the PlayStation 4. That you can just switch between VR mode and not. And either way, it is an engrossing experience. I would think that being able to play it in handheld may also like have some sort of extra special quality to it. But never play it on silent. Like always, like headphones or volume up as loud as you can. Like you should experience the auditory output that it's giving you, and don't resist it, because there are some of the songs like are and the pieces of music are a little bit cheesy and a little like new agey, but like it all is done purposefully and is beautiful when you let it happen to you.
Man, it seems like it's going to be a good week for games. I'm excited.
Hey, we're in October, which of course is Game and Watch month, but it is also the month that we know that Nintendo's just like letting everything fly, right? Like we're getting that Mario Party game, we're getting the Nintendo 64 stuff. Like it's all happening. Okay, let's close out the new releases. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers did not play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, today we are talking about TV shows we think we'd be good on. And this sort of inspired by you asking what reality shows we think we would be good on. So I want to start there because I think there are a lot of reality shows that I would be bad on, like anything where I need to survive or eat something gross or cook or bake something. I would be bad at those.
I think eating something gross, I think I could do, as long as that thing that's gross is not spiders. I think if I had to eat spiders, I would not be able to do that. But I think anything else, I think I would do okay at. I agree with you though. Like, I would be awful at like Survivor or something like that.
Or like Alone. Come on.
Oh yeah. No way at all. Do you know what I think I could be good at is Supermarket Sweep. I think I'd be pretty good at Supermarket Sweep.
Do you think you would be better at Supermarket Sweep or Price is Right?
Oh, for sure, Supermarket Sweep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Price is Right. I don't think I'd be very good at the prices. I don't think if I got to the like bidding part of Price is Right, I think that's where I would lose. Like, I would not make it onto the actual game.
Yeah, I think I probably would too. I mean, honestly, I don't know where they like. I've lived in Los Angeles now for too long, right? Where like if someone is going to show me prices of something, my mind is going to try to do math of like, well, where am I, right? Like, well, a box of cereal, yeah. What does it cost? What does it cost at a grocery store in Los Feliz versus what does it cost in my hometown, in Wisconsin? Like that's like 100% difference in price.
Yes, completely.
God bless you, Mark.
Thank you. Hopefully the mic picked that up because that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a powerful sneeze.
Not to get a sidetrack, Patrick. Are you a micro sneezer? Because I feel like there are two types of people in the world. There are people who it's like one big sneeze, but they're one and done. And then there's micro sneezers where it's like 5 like itty bitty sneezes and then they're finished.
No, I would say if anything, I am a macro sneezer. I inherited my father's sneeze, which growing up I always thought was performative because his sneeze goes like this. I'm about to perform it for you, okay? It goes like that. The whole thing, that rhythm. And I don't do exactly that, but I have that. You've heard me sneeze, that I have like a full, it's like articulated and loud.
Yes, you're it's like your father's sneeze, but your own twist on it. You're like Mutt from Indiana Jones 4, Temple to Crystal.
I mean, that's what I always aspire to be. Yes, thank you, Mark. Sometimes I think I would be good, especially if I like just made myself study for it on Jeopardy. Because and this is a classic case of like, someone who watches, who's like a big fan of the NBA and is like, I could do that. But like, I watch a ton of Jeopardy. I love it a lot. I think I understand like the strategy of like how to play the game well. And when I'm like actively trying to play along with it, I do pretty well. So yeah, I think I'd be good at Jeopardy.
Have you ever tried like taking the quiz?
No, of course not. What if I'm no good at it?
I think most weeks or most like 8 days I would be absolutely awful at Jeopardy. But sometimes there are a few people, like they get a group together, there's 3 of them, and you're like, with this group I think I could hang. I think I could do I think if I got with the right group that I could I could succeed.
If there are a bunch of dummies up there. What do you ever
Your words.
Yeah, I did. Do you ever Sarah and I watch Jeopardy a lot, and then Wheel of Fortune just starts after it. And we mute the TV when Jeopardy is over, and then we end up like watching half of the episode of Wheel of Fortune on mute. And I believe that's the way the show is meant to be watched.
Um, just like it was. I do watch, or I don't right now watch Wheel of Fortune, but when I first moved to LA, like I didn't know anybody, so I would come home from work and I would watch Jeopardy and watch Wheel of Fortune, and then I would go to the gym. And so, like Pat, Jason, Jack, and Vanna White have seen me through a lot of tough times. So nothing but love for that group. But it's wild to me that they've been doing that since I was a child, and seemingly, it just like it was weird when the Jeopardy hosts changed or continue to change, as the case may be. I think it'll be weird when Wheel of Fortune, like, I don't know what will happen when.
Were you paying attention when Pat Sajak had like surgery and Vanna White hosted for a while?
Yes, and she just like slid in like the professional that she is and was just like, I can do this. Like, she knocked it out of the park.
Because of course she can. She's done it every day for like her entire life. Mark, we are way past the applause at this point, so I'm cutting it off. That's the end of this. We were accompanied today by the CWU Viola Ensemble. Let's get into the news.
Okay, we want to acknowledge, before we get into this, that this morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time, the final Sakurai Presents happened. So presumably at this point, we're living in a world where we know who the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate final DLC character is. We're all extremely happy about it. It's the perfect choice that somehow everybody agrees is the fitting final character. And so we, of course, will talk about this more next week, but as of this recording, we don't know. Patrick, do we even want to try to venture any final guesses that will be immediately moot because most people will know the answer before they listen to this episode?
Nah, I'm actually very happy with the state of the like Nintendo or like Smash fan community right now, because like I don't know, I feel like in the lead up to every other character reveal, there is some kind of leak or like someone knows something that blah 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 blah. I feel like it is a genuine crapshoot. It could be anyone or anything, and I will like you know what I mean. Like there's no such thing as a surprise or shock here anymore. It's all just like it's just destiny. Whatever it's gonna be, it's destiny, and I'm excited to see that play out finally.
Yeah, I agree. There's something fun about it being like the final one, and I feel like not everybody, but I feel like to some degree, there's a little bit of this like kumbaya state in the fan community right now. Just it's almost like we know that an asteroid is going to smash into the planet, and so everybody's just like, all right, we're just gonna have a good time. And so I feel like in the lead up to this final reveal that there's been a little bit of everybody just kind of appreciating how amazing this run of DLC characters for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has been.
Yeah, on top of an also already amazing game. And just like that, every step of the way we've been guided by Masahiro Sakurai, who, for whatever other complaints you could have about the DLC or the rollout or the cost or the existence of another Fire Emblem character or whatever, the fact that Sakurai has been there to like usher it all in, to explain it all, and just be the most charming man in the universe, it's just like it's nothing short of like wholly remarkable. I'll miss the like kind of spin up to getting new characters, but I'm gonna miss the Sakurai Presents. I always watch these things, even though it's like 40 minutes explaining how the dudes from Minecraft work. I'm like, I'm never gonna play those guys, but the presentations are always wonderful. So I'll miss those. I'm very excited to wake up tomorrow morning and watch this presentation.
And we will, of course, talk more about the character reveal and all of that in next week's news episode. But for now, Patrick, let's turn our attention to these new rumors of a Metroid Prime remake.
All right. Okay, Mark. All right.
So this is something that popped up online the past week or so. Just to give a little history behind it. So rumors have been around from way back in 2018 that Nintendo has a completed Metroid Prime trilogy port for Switch and have just been sitting on it waiting for like the right time to release it. And this rumor gained a lot of steam before the Game Awards in 2018. Like there was I think around that time we maybe even did an episode where we were predicting what would be shown at the Game Awards, and I think I said Metroid Prime trilogy because there were people who were just like certain that it was going to happen, and of course, nothing ever came of that. But this idea has kind of like persisted in the atmosphere that the game is complete and just waiting for release.
Right. And I mean, in addition to being like rumored, it is a much like requested game, right? Like it's sort of a too good to be true thing that it came out in the first place on Wii, right? That Metroid Prime trilogy was ever released as a single package with upgraded controls for the first two games and like widescreen presentations and all this other stuff. Like it was sort of a unicorn when it came out initially. To have it like updated and patched for like button controls on the Switch is like another level of unicorn that everyone just seemingly wants. I still think it's not as easy as people seem to assume that it is to just put those games on Switch. And we saw a little bit of that there was like a former retro developer that was in like a Facebook conversation about it, saying like, oh yeah, all of the Metroid Prime 3 stuff is specifically tuned to those motion controls, so it would be tough to like change it over to more standard button input, but people hold out hope and they want it anyway, and it would be cool to have access to those games again in some capacity.
Yes, and I mean yes, well, and in some capacity is an interesting point, Patrick, because
Yeah.
recently, I think it was either earlier last week or maybe the end of the week before, occasional Nintendo leaker Emily Rogers commented that Retro is working on a remake of the original Metroid Prime game and that work on it is completed or nearing completion. So this was kind of like the new rumor, was that Metroid Prime trilogy port for Switch never existed, and this remake of the original Metroid Prime game is what was being worked on, and somehow, through telephone, it became this idea that the Metroid Prime trilogy existed. So others have corroborated this take, and on Resetera, user Belmont shared some information, and so their info goes like this. Originally, Nintendo commissioned Retro for a full asset remake of Metroid Prime trilogy, and it would be 1-to-1 remakes of the original games, just with modern art. At the same time, Nintendo was having issues with Bandai Namco's work on Metroid Prime 4, particularly the level design. So Nintendo asked Retro to assist on the level design for Metroid Prime 4. Then, as things continued to devolve with Bandai Namco, and based on the strength of Retro's design work for both the Metroid Prime remake and the level design work for Metroid Prime 4, Nintendo turned the whole Metroid Prime 4 project over to Retro. And when that was happening was around the same time that rumors of Metroid Prime trilogy being complete started popping up. So right around, like October, November 2018. Because it was in January of 2019 that we learned that Metroid Prime 4 was getting rebooted under Retro.
Oh boy. Okay, so lots of points of data here.
Yes. Yeah. So, final point of data. Before Retro took over the whole of Metroid Prime 4, they were planning to remake the entire Metroid Prime trilogy. But since Metroid Prime 4 became the priority, the plan was for them to finish the remake of the first game, and then the other games would be contracted out using the work done on Metroid Prime 1 as like the standard for how it should work.
Yeah.
But unknown if that is still the plan or if this now rumored Metroid Prime remake is all we're going to get. I guess the point is like, is any of this true? Who knows, right?
Yeah, who knows?
But it, it seems like what this user posted on Resetera like makes sense. But kind of like regardless, to me, if nothing else, it's a fascinating look into the game of telephone around like these leaks and rumors that we talk about on the show. Like it makes me really reevaluate the rumors from just a few weeks ago of Game Boy and Game Boy Color games coming to Switch, right?
Yeah.
Because you realize that it's like coming through like third hand sources or like, like really far down the chain. And so it's easy for, and then people I think are taking the scraps of information they have and making some like assumptions based on it. And so you just kind of end up with these completely wild takes that end up not like going anywhere necessarily. I don't know. I just found this whole thing fascinating.
Yeah, well, and like it obviously is fascinating, and that's why so many of the rumors, because like there could be just as many like rumors about other studios remaking or releasing games and franchises that just don't have the same sort of like rabid fan base that Nintendo does, where like we're just hungry for information, right? And Nintendo has the ability to do something crazy like release Metroid Dread 15 years after like the code name goes dark, right? So nothing that you ever hear rumor wise about Nintendo can be ruled out as like absolutely not happening, right? Like anything can happen. Mario Rabbids shared a game together. Like that was a thing that happened, was a rumor, and everyone was like, no way, that's stupid, not gonna happen. And then it did happen, and it was great. So yeah, I mean, you're right. This all goes back to a big who knows, and I'm excited to. I wonder what like their obviously all the Metroid oxygen right now is being taken up by Metroid Dread. But I wonder how much they let that continue to breathe before starting to reveal more information about upcoming Metroid releases.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing. I mean, I feel like um they've committed to Metroid Prime 4, and so
Yeah.
like we get a Mario, we get at least a Mario thing every year. We get usually at least a Zelda thing every year. I don't know if Metroid can handle that same like cadence, but I'd be interested in finding out as like a Metroid fan. I would love
Right.
to revisit a like modern an updated version of Metroid Prime. Like yeah, if they can do it in the way that the best remakes are, where like it is the game you remember instead of the game it actually was on the GameCube,
Yep.
like
Yep.
I would absolutely adore that.
Well, and Dread is really the first opportunity for, I think really the first opportunity for a Metroid game to like succeed in a big way, like that it's positioned on the right platform at the right time, like for the right audience. The Prime 3 and Other M both being on the Wii means that there was a huge install base, but it's sort of the wrong install base. And then Other M, in particular, was like the wrong type of game. But it seems like Dread is the right type of game on the right platform with a huge enough install base. I'm really curious to see like how successful is it? Like, does it sell millions of copies? Like, what is going to be the fate of Metroid Dread?
Yeah, I'm really curious as well because in addition to being on the Switch, which is a very successful console that like games on it do well and have a lot of hype, you now have, and this wasn't true with Other M, you now have like an entire generation of gamers who are really familiar with this Metroid formula because of indie games that were inspired by games like,
Yeah.
Super Metroid. And so it is much more of a thing now than I think it has ever been. Yeah, and Nintendo is putting its like full force behind Metroid Dread. Like it is a really big deal. So I will be really interested to see how big it can go.
Yeah, me too.
Speaking of rumors, and last week Bloomberg reported that the much rumored Switch Pro was real, but that it got canceled due to the global chip shortage, and so the Switch OLED model is kind of like a uh um like stopgap or like a runners up where they were like, okay, we can't do the full thing, but we can change the form factor and do this all the other stuff. We're just not able to secure the chips we need to make it run in 4K or whatever.
That's so weird because they obviously like need the chips to make the OLED version run too. Like,
Yeah, but maybe those are easier to acquire. Like, I don't really know.
or maybe it's part of like controlling the demand for it, right? They understand that if it's like a just an incremental upgrade, that the demand for it is less than if it's like a genuine like sequel to the Switch.
Yeah, totally. Like, I would love to know what the real story is here, and I don't feel like, because Bloomberg was so insistent for so long, and they got
Yeah.
so many of the details of the Switch OLED model correct, like dead on, except for the fact that it would be more powerful and be able to upscale to 4K. And so that was a big question mark when the Switch OLED was revealed. Was like, what exactly happened here? Because so
Right.
much of it was dead on. So basically, that's Bloomberg's take on it, is that it was real. It got canceled due to the global chip shortage, and reportedly the necessary components aren't going to be available until 2025. And so, additionally, Bloomberg has reported that at least 11 game companies are in possession of 4K capable Switch development kits, which of course would lead credence to the idea that there either was a more powerful Switch in development or there is a more powerful Switch forthcoming still. An interesting wrinkle is that most of the 11 companies are not named, but they're said to be both, quote, large publishers and, quote, small studios. But there was one company that was specifically named, and that's Zynga, who has never actually made a console game before. Per Bloomberg,
Weird detail.
there's just like, there's so much going on. It just raises more questions than it answers. The last kind of bit of Bloomberg's report is that it, being whatever this updated console is, would not be expected to release until late next year at the earliest, which kind of seems like self-evident at this point.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a real duh, right? Like if they're putting out the OLED model now, yeah, at least a year before there's another model on the market. But also, I mean, that note about the necessary components won't be available until 2025. I mean, that is some grim prognostication, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it too, but at that point you're looking at like whatever the Switch successor is, right? Like, you're not looking
Right.
at an updated model. But all of this Bloomberg reporting got strong pushback from Nintendo, to the point where they released a statement calling it false. And it reads in part, quote, "To ensure correct understanding among our investors and customers, we want to clarify that this report is not true. We also want to restate that, as we announced in July, we have no plans for any new model other than the Nintendo Switch OLED model, which will launch on October 8th, 2021. Also, Zynga released a statement denying that they have a 4K kit from Nintendo as well. The Verge noted, quote, "Zynga spokesperson Sarah Ross also denied the report, saying in a statement to Bloomberg and Kotaku, quote, 'To clarify, Zynga does not have a 4K developer kit from Nintendo,' end quote. Zynga was the only developer named out of the 11 companies that Bloomberg reported receiving a 4K Switch development kit. When we asked Zynga," meaning The Verge asked Zynga, whether Zynga ever had a 4K Switch development kit in the past, the company told us, "We have not received 4K developer kits from Nintendo."
So, either all of this is true and people have strong NDAs, or it's false and it's more of that like wishful thinking and like putting together the pieces that were always just leading to an OLED model of Switch.
Right. And it's so, there's just so many, everything about the the Switch OLED model, like the lead up to it, and then the reveal, and now the aftermath, is such a mess. I think you're totally right that it's like a Metroid Prime trilogy situation where who knows? I don't know. Maybe Bloomberg might be 100% correct, and Nintendo might be just like very carefully crafting statements. But it seems like a pretty categorical denial, and Zynga's denial that they ever received 4K developer kits from Nintendo. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of all of it. It just seems like a mess.
I mean, I don't know. The whole like chip shortage and like supply line constraints thing is obviously changing like a lot of plans and affecting a lot of availability for hardware, especially among like new video game consoles. So like I do believe that Nintendo probably went in to 2020 with higher hopes for their hardware and probably software lines than they were able to deliver on. And you know, like who knows how far out like Nintendo was forecasting what they were going to be able to do, and then had to make like big changes as the world shifted over like 2 years. Um, and that we're still in that shift, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a really good point, and you could see how it would be fairly easy, or I shouldn't say easy, that if you're looking right, like if you were planning for this new model, let's say that it was like this, we'll just call it a pro model for simplicity's sake, to come out in 2021, but then 2020 happens and the supply chain gets messed up, but you cannot stock enough Switch to go around. Like you have like an
Yeah.
amazing year. It could be easier then to, make that shift where it's like, okay, well, maybe we don't actually need this, like ultra powerful model because the Switch seems to have enough, like juice in it as it is.
Plus, they had secured all of these like large Samsung screens
Right.
too, right? Like that was something that like Nintendo was like, making money on the buy at this point, and buying them for super cheap because there wasn't enough demand for them in other devices. And they were like, well, we have to release something because that's a sunk cost. We bought all these screens, and we can't just like quietly put out Switches with bigger screens. They have to call it something. And honestly, like the OLED is a pretty quiet release as far as Nintendo hardware upgrades go. So yeah, I mean it's all perfectly understandable and confusing as hell at the same time.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. And it's like we will never actually know what the truth
Never
of the
know.
situation is.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest X Offline was revealed during a Dragon Quest anniversary stream earlier this year, but it wasn't clear exactly when the game would be released. At Tokyo Game Show on Monday, Square Enix announced that the game would be coming out in Japan on February 26th, 2022.
Another early 2022 release of like a huge, awesome, like really cool looking game. Obviously, we're not getting it here, but man, I know there's probably not even a market for it or whatever because the original MMO version of Dragon Quest X never came out here. But man, I would like to play that game. I would like to play that game.
I think especially like offline, in my dream they would release it here. I think at this point there's just too much text. Like I don't think they want to do the
Yeah.
localization for as like niche as Dragon Quest is in the US.
Yeah, I mean, I know like 11 did pretty well, but probably not on the same scale as to justify translating 10.
But speaking of cool things that so far are only coming to Japan, Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Japan, still the only Super Nintendo World in the universe. But we are getting one in Hollywood, but we don't know when that's going to open. But even though they have the only Super Nintendo World, they're really rubbing it in our faces because they announced that Universal Studios Japan will be getting a Donkey Kong expansion, which is planned to be
Ugh.
open in 2024. Which honestly, by that time, who knows if if the Super Nintendo World in Hollywood will even be open at that
Oh
point.
my God. I hope so.
All we
2024 is so long from now, Mark.
All we know so far is that this new land will include a Donkey Kong themed roller coaster attraction and places to shop and eat. Patrick, the Universal had filed some patents for a roller coaster that I think is probably what is coming here and has the potential to be very cool. It's like a minecart themed roller coaster, but essentially there is a false track that guests can see, but then underneath that is like the real track, and so by using that they can make it seem like you are jumping over gaps because
Which is really cool.
yeah, like I think the potential here is amazing. The rumor The rumor is that there is space at Universal Studios Hollywood that they are reserving for the Donkey Kong roller coaster in the future. And I would love that to be true, but Universal Studios Hollywood is very small, so I'm not entirely sure how they would make that work.
It's very small and very strangely situated, right? Like half the park is like down a mountainside. You have to take this enormous escalator to get from the top to the bottom. It's like its own ride in and of itself. I'm a little worried by the language roller coaster attraction and not roller coaster. I understand this is the way Universal does a lot of their rides, where it's like you're on a little track and you're like moving around and there's some like screens or some AR or something. I would much prefer just like a straight up roller coaster. I would always rather it just be a roller coaster than a roller coaster attraction. But who am I kidding? Like if this is a minecart ride from Donkey Kong, like I'm all the way in.
I also think we might just be experiencing a great moment in copywriting where roller coaster attraction might just mean roller coaster.
I don't know, man. To me, this reads like, the flight of the hippogriff. Like this was what we're getting is a roller coaster like attraction.
Yeah, could be. Totally could be. Finally, while not the Game Boy classic, Boy and His Blob Rescue of Princess Blobette, a game that is near and dear to my heart, a different A Boy and His Blob game is getting ported over to Switch. The 2009 reimagining of the original game that was developed by WayForward and released on the Wii. The new port is being published by Ziggurat and Interactive, and it's supposed to come out before the end of the year, which is really soon. Patrick, is this the one where it has the hug button?
I believe this one does have the hug button. Yes. This is the one that came out on Wii, which itself was, as Mark said, a like reimagining of the original game that came out on NES and maybe like computer platforms or like some other stuff. Did you play this one, Mark? I know you are a Rescue of Princess Blobette fan.
No, I didn't play it, but I remember the discussion around it just because it was, like press A to hug. Sounds cute.
Yeah, well, and it's got that very WayForward, like hand drawn animation style to it. Which is just like, even now you don't really see games like taking on that aesthetic. So yeah, this will be one that'll be super exciting to check out when it comes out, I guess this year. Maybe it comes out in October like every other game. All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. We appreciate it when you do that. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at NinCart Society. We also have a Facebook page if Facebook still exists. Is Facebook back now?
Facebook is back, baby.
Facebook is back, okay. The page is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. From my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thank you for listening.
Imagine a podcast. Now, imagine a musical. Now, imagine the two of them made 1 million babies. Well, you don't have to imagine it, because it's real, and it has a name. 1 million musicals. Each month, we bring you a brand new, original podcast musical featuring talent from across Broadway, films, and TV. You'll hear tales of spooky ghosts, Wild West shootouts, adventures on the high seas, and much, much more. 1 million musicals. Only a few 100,000 to go.
A Campfire Media podcast.
Campfire.